Hey guys, it's Sierra the Festive Bohemian. Today we are going to be propagating some alocasia bulbs. But first, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. I share a lot of DIYs and planting content with a new video every Thursday, just like this one. So yeah, hit that little button below and let's get into it. Alocasias can be propagated two ways. Now, one way is through division, which as I was dividing this Alocasia Beauty, which I'm going to be transferring to Leca today, she had a little pup growing on the side. Now I'll probably put that in some moss, and then I'll probably move her from the sphagnum to some Leca eventually. But even just as you see, there's like two pieces of my Alocasia that came apart as I was removing the soil. You can just plant those separately as well, and then they'll continue to grow into two separate plants. With alocasias, you can't just take a cutting and plant it, right? There's no node. You need those rhizomes in order to grow more alocasias. Now, you won't always find bulbs when you're replanting an alocasia. It does depend a lot on how mature your alocasia is. So in this case, when I was replanting my Alocasia Beauty High-Low, hopefully I'm saying that right, when I was transferring her to Leca, I didn't see any bulbs on her, which I was hoping for so I could show you what they looked like, but instead I'm just going to insert a picture here for you. Now, when I got my Polly, I was replanting her. She had quite a few of these little bulbs, like, that just fell off very easily, and you don't have to worry about them falling off because you're not hurting your plant in any way. Your plant will be totally fine. And alocasias have been one of those plants that I just feel really take to the Leca. I feel like they enjoy it, and I enjoy watching them in Leca. Because unlike a lot of plants, it is not hard at all to clean these roots. If you've ever cleaned a Hoya's root, I haven't actually done this, but a begonia I'm gonna figure is gonna be more difficult to clean. So I feel like the transfer for alocasias is pretty easy as well, one of the easiest I've come across. Now, anytime you bring home an alocasia, you should be prepared to lose a few leaves. Just the transition from one environment to another can put your alocasia into a bit of a shock. I've always found this to be the case for me. I keep them outside in my outdoor patio here, and every time I've brought one home, I have lost at least one or two. Totally normal. Don't fret about that. Your plant is just getting adjusted, and all you need to do is just simply snip off those dying leaves. Now, with alocasias, if you notice that your plant just continues to lose leaves, it's one and then it's another and another and another, and then there's none, still don't give up, because, let me just grab him. Why don't I have them all here? 1 second. So with this guy, when I first got this guy, I got him from a friend. So I'm honestly not sure what he even is, but I do know he's an alocasia of some sort. When I got him, he was really tiny, itty bitty, and it was just like an offset in her plant. I was like, I'm gonna take that. And I planted it in like a tiny, tiny jar of Leca. As I've mentioned in past videos, in my opinion, the key to a lot of plants succeeding in Leca is to make sure that your container is small. You don't want to plant, say, a plant like this alocasia, in a large pot. I know you're thinking it's going to grow into it, but the Leca stays wet longer, which will then make your chances of root rot higher. You want your Leca to be able to dry out. You want your plant to be able to drink the water, but not to consistently be wet. So that's why with all my plants, even my alocasias, I really don't water until there's next to nothing in the container. And I'm always watering on the lower side than on the higher side. I'll put in a picture for reference to where this guy started, but he lost all of his leaves, but I said, you know what, I'm just gonna leave him in this Leca, just his little bulb. He did have a few roots as well, but They don't even need those as far as I'm aware. So me and alocasias have been through a lot, and that's why I feel like I understand them now. For instance, this guy, this is variegated Alocasia dura. She lost basically all her roots. She had one little nub sticking out, but I'm pretty confident with it, even out that nub, she would have made a recovery. That's why I appreciate alocasias, because they do try. Trust me, your alocasias will try their hardest to survive, and all you have to do is not give up on them. There she is. I just recently moved all of these up a pot. I believe I did it in my last video, and here's another one. And all of these in the transfer have lost their leaves. The only one to completely lose all of its leaves was this little guy that I showed you. You may be wondering, like, what doesn't have any leaves? How? The bulbs themselves hold or store energy in them. And I'm just gonna say this so I don't forget to say it later, is that alocasias do want to be fertilized pretty frequently. I only don't fertilize it if it's gone dormant or it looks like it's not growing anymore, say in the winter, and it looks like it may need a bit of a rest, but otherwise fertilize as normal. And honestly, the one plant, I need to grab one more alocasia. I have one more I need to show you. One second. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is my alocasia Polly. My first alocasia. She has been through it all with me already. She looks like, you know, super sad, I know, because we've been battling some spider mites. But I think we finally made a full recovery. She started growing some new growth there. Can you see? Maybe?
Nice.
Super excited about that. So another reason I enjoy growing my alocasias in Leca is because they're known to get spider mites. I've heard other people getting other pests such as what was the other one? Ooh, personally, spider mites seem to just be the worst of it when it comes to your alocasias. But have no fear, because removing spider mites from your plants when your plant is in Leca, I feel like is actually pretty easy. What I do with my alocasia, you know, I give it a shower, I hose it down to make sure that there's no spider mites on the plant, and then I take like this neem oil stuff here. You can mix your own. This one is like a pre-made ready to use one, but yeah, they also have ones that you can mix your own. You just buy the solution and then you can put it in a spray bottle yourself. But what I do is then I just spray the crap out of it. Make sure I get under the leaves, get all the foliage. What you should do is rinse the plant first, right, and then use the product, because how the neem oil works is that it's one of those where the bug is feeding on the plant and ingests it, and then it doesn't make babies, or it ingests it and it dies. It can't make babies. Anyways, it doesn't necessarily kill the plants that are currently on the thing. It's like a process and how it works. So if you just spray them, you won't see like them just all fall off and die. It doesn't work quite that quickly. So my Polly was actually one of the first plants. If you watch one of my first videos I made on Leca, this alocasia Polly was that one that I transferred, and she was much larger. Like when I first transferred her to Leca, she did lose a lot more leaves than now I lose when I transfer my alocasias, and I believe it was just me being a bad plant parent. You know, I had her under the grow light and the grow light was too close, burnt her leaves, so I moved her somewhere else. I was just like constantly moving her around, colder temperature, warmer temperature, and I wasn't really thinking about the fact that she was getting adjusted to a new environment. I was like, where are you gonna be happy, before she could even adjust. So I think that made it harder for her. What I would definitely recommend is just to find that nice warm spot, a bright spot. If it's a south window, you want to make sure that you have like a layer of protection, a sheer curtain that just lets less light in, because it's a south window and I don't want to burn my plant. You don't need a heat pad. I've seen people have heat pads, but if you don't have that warm spot to provide your plants, then you may want to consider a heat mat. Anywho, enough about caring for them. Let's get back to the bulb situation, right? Like I mentioned, I was looking for bulbs with my Alocasia high-low, and I didn't find any. But that's okay, because I'm gonna show you the ones I do have and then how to set it up. There are several mediums you can use to plant your bulbs in, obviously soil being one of them. However, I am not going to do soil. Personally, I have been preferring sphagnum over Leca starting my bulbs. I've been rooting all my plants in my sphagnum prop box. I made a little video on how I made my I made a video on how I make my prop boxes, which I'll link right here for you if you want to go check it out. The reason I prefer this prop box over propagating my alocasias in Leca is because there's less prep. I already have a box with sphagnum in it, and that transfer from sphagnum to Leca is extremely easy. I don't necessarily want to take the time to prepare a container for everything, where if you have a box, you just put things in the box. If there's room, you take things out, you put things in. It's just like constantly rotating plants in that box. Everything's together so I don't forget about anything, because that's another big issue for me. I always forget about things. Let me tell you a story. I got these bulbs, right, from my Alocasia poly. Like I mentioned, that video was ages ago at this point. I want to say 6 months, maybe longer ago, that I had those little bulby things from my poly. So I took these bulbs and I put them in a thing of Leca. Now what I did wrong is I filled the thing of Leca too high. Remember, this is my learning phase, so that's why I don't want to give you like a concrete answer here. Just want to explain my story and let you do you. They kind of looked like they started to rot. They weren't looking good, right? They were looking like they were going downhill, and I kind of forgot about them even at one point. Like, I was letting the container dry out. I wasn't paying attention to it. They went through a lot in those 6 months. Now, a few months ago, I put these little bulbs in my sphagnum and they took off. I opened the container and I was like, whoa, where'd you come from? And I had little polys. And it's crazy to me because of the abuse they went through. I thought there was no way that they were still going to be able to come out. But then I started thinking about it, and you could buy these bulbs at Home Depot or Lowe's. They have like the package where you just buy the bulbs and then you plant them yourself. And the point is, if you have these bulbs and you don't want to plant them right away, or you think there's no way that they're gonna grow, just feel them and see if they are squishy, if they're firm. If they're firm, then they're likely good and you can still use them. That's that. But what you want to do is just make sure that your little bulbs are receiving some light. I covered them under the sphagnum, kind of burying them a little bit. Now, when I added these bulbs to my sphagnum moss, I didn't do anything different than I would with any of my other plants. So if you've ever made a prop box, you know how it works. If you don't, feel free to check out my video. I go a little bit more in depth in it. Not too deep. It's just the basic prop box tutorial. Alrighty guys, so here we go. I've got my little baby Alocasia polys. You can see the little bulbs there. And they've got quite a bit of roots. Now a lot of them are like weirdly positioned, and that was because they were in my prop box, which wasn't necessarily meant for taller plants, so probably get a taller prop box, which I do have now, but at the time I put them in there I really did not think they were gonna do anything. But here we are. So it's a little curved because it was like growing on the box and it wanted light, so it like did a weird loopy thing, but hopefully we can get his back sorted here. Now I'm trying to think if I want to plant them all separately or should I plant them together? Because on one hand, more plants to take care of. On the other hand, more plants. Can you believe I found these at the thrift store the other day? Whoa, it was like nothing. It was like $1 and a whole pack of them. It was great. Could do 2. Should I maybe do 2 per pot? life decisions, guys. Because then you have to find like multiple containers, you know what I mean? Versus one container. Do we have any containers around here? I'm running out of containers, guys. Looks like I need to go. I just realized I'm drinking a beer. Looks like I've got to go back to the thrift store because I'm running out of containers over here. Alright, so I'm just going to use this container actually because I just want to have them all together for now. I am going on vacation next week, and less plants for somebody else to take care of while I'm gone means less opportunity for plants to die, right? Alrighty, so it's probably like a half of the way full. I usually say a third of the way, but I also don't want the roots too low. And I feel like this is probably a better situation for them. Got them all. There goes the Leca every time. I'm so messy. So I have like this whole setup I use where I don't make a mess when I do this. But for some reason, every time I do this, I'm like, nah, I'm just not going to make a mess this time. You know, I'll be good. And look at me. Never fails, always making a mess. I don't even know why. I convince myself otherwise. Okay, there we go. So I think it looks really cute. Then as it grows, I'll probably separate them. But for now, I'm going to put him in here. I do try to like flush the plant before I give it a reservoir. As you can see, without making a mess. Flushing anything in there out a bit better, you know. And then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a reservoir. Don't want to fill it up too much. And then I do put like just a tiny drop of Super Thrive in the container. It's supposed to just help with the transplant shock. Do I always use this every time I transplant a plant? No. But I kind of like forgot about it. And then I was thinking, hey, why don't I use that stuff anymore? Maybe my plants would be happier. You don't want to be moving him around all over the place. You just want to find a nice warm spot with bright indirect light that he will be able to take to the Leca and live happily ever after. They like humidity and they like warmer environments. I've heard that 60 and up is the temperature that they prefer. They are outside in my patio and they seem to really like it out here in this Florida heat. And also make sure you keep them away from drafts. I've probably killed the majority of my ferns this way, and alocasias are similar. They just don't like drafts. They will die. So, you know, if it's next to a door that is constantly being open, like right behind me, the sliding door into my house is freezing, outside is super warm. Every time I open that door, I had a fern that was sitting right there, a beautiful tiger fern. And every time I would open that door, I would get a nice blast of cold air, and it really dried out all the fronds. I've since moved my tiger fern and hoping that it can make a recovery, which has nothing to do with this video, but I just cut back my fern, and hopefully it's going to start coming back. Alocasias, what I do, the ones in Leca, I will let the reservoir dry out completely, but unlike my Hoyas, I may let sit a couple days and not stress out. Even my pothos, dare I say, I've been bad with it, honestly, just forgetting about it because it just drinks up the water so freaking fast. But my alocasias, I will let them sit for like a day max without water because the Leca still at least contains some moisture, and then I'll refill it, but I do not constantly top up the water. I just found that this works best for me is when I let the reservoir basically completely dry out. Like if I know I'm about to leave and the reservoir is like tiny, like there's a little bit in the container still, I might top it off, but for the most part, day to day, I don't top up the reservoirs like that, and I find myself refilling them probably couple times a week, depending on how big the container is. There's so many variables, you guys, so it's hard to say. Alright guys, there's how you propagate your bulbs and a little bit about how to take care of your alocasias in Leca. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel and it shows me that you like the stuff, so I really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram as well, because I post plant updates and more DIY goodies on there. Really, here and there right now are the only places I'm really active. If you guys have any questions about alocasias and bulbs or anything plant related, honestly, please feel free to ask me in the comments below. I'd love to hear your questions, and it helps me kind of understand what I should be including more of in my video. Have a beautiful day, guys. Bye.